So Martin Luther King Jr. is going to get killed. It was in 1968, April. You had Operation Lantern Spike. It's a U.S. Army intelligence surveillance operation exercise in which Memphis, they're checking out racial events coinciding with the visit of Martin Luther King. So the cops are stalking Martin Luther King, the FBI, the fucking U.S. Army. He's in Memphis right there to protect the sanitation workers, but he's doing a march, and it broke out into violence the first time, and he was real sad and disappointed, and he was determined to have a non-violent march the next day. James Bevel said that there's no way a 10-cent white trash boy could develop a plan to kill $1 million black man. December 1993, Lloyd Jowers, a white man from Memphis with business interests in the vicinity of the assassination site, said that the mafia and the federal government and him conspired to kill MLK. Jowers had claimed he hired a hitman to kill MLK as a favor for a friend, Frank Liberto, a produce merchant who died before 1993. The Department of Justice, however, says that Lloyd Jowers has pointed to different people as the hitman. He says, number one, he said it was a black man on South Main Street. Then he also pointed to Raul. And he also said that white lieutenant with the Memphis Police Department, also a person he didn't recognize, and FBI, CIA, U.S. Army, Memphis Police Department, and organized crime. A tenant on the second floor said he heard a shot, saw a man fleeing down the hallway from the direction of the bathroom. James Earl Ray went down some outside stairs and jumped into his white Mustang in an alley. White Mustang in an alley? Along the way, he dropped a bundle that included a Remington 30-06, right, and now you say 30-06 rifle, binoculars, and a sales receipt for ammunition. Ray's prints were on the rifle and one spent shell in the chamber. James Earl Ray later said somebody else left the bundle there to incriminate him. Guy Knippi, a witness, said that the package was actually dropped in the doorway to his store about 10 minutes before the shot was fired. Yeah, someone dropped this package 10 minutes before the shot was fired. Olivia Catling saw a fellow in a checkered shirt running out of the alley beside a building across from the Lorraine soon after the shooting, hopping into a green 1965 Chevy. Okay, checkered shirt man running out. Kind of reminds me of the polka-dotted woman who says, we shot him, we shot Kennedy. She announced this like loudly right after. Judge Joe Brown that said that 67% of the bullets from his test did not match the Ray rifle. Also, the rifle wasn't sighted, didn't have the right scope on it. The bullet in MLK didn't come from Ray's rifle. The bullet in his body didn't come from his rifle. Lee Harvey Oswald got away. James Earl Ray got away. 2 months later, Thane Eugene Caesar got away. And the cops, what the fuck? Thane Eugene Caesar was a cop, and then what? Lockheed Martin, you need to keep the armaments. Who was that damn John Frederick Parker? The motherfucker John Frederick Parker is the reason why Abraham Lincoln got killed. John Wilkes Booth had a gun with only one shot. So, like Eminem, he had one shot, one opportunity. But if that John Frederick Parker had been sitting in front of that damn booth like he was supposed to, then Booth would have been stopped. He only had one bullet. So he would have wasted his bullet, either, successfully or not. But that guy being there would have stopped the assassination. It's incredible, actually, why was Abraham Lincoln so, I don't want to say completely naked, but had no goddamn Secret Service, had no FBI, he had nobody protecting him. And I guess Ronald Reagan, the Secret Service, one of those guys got shot, so they did better. They did a lot better. Sartor died in Texas as he was completing a first draft of a book on the MLK assassination. That's convenient, right? 2 autopsies failed to reveal the cause of his death. Judge Joe Brown, he asked, you got this 3-time loser, escaped convict, no obvious financial resources, no technical knowledge, is going to not only miraculously learn how to become a good marksman, this one individual is able to acquire the resources to get identities of deceased individuals, good forgeries for passports and fake IDs, and somehow acquire funds for a very expensive itinerary and travel schedule. I've never been to Europe. He was in London. Now, be real, he's a stooge, a decoy to throw everybody off. Sartor died in Texas as he was completing a first draft of a book on the MLK assassination. I bet he's got some notes. Here's a Justice Department memo that is based on confidential information from informers. Well-placed protege of Carlos Marcello in New Orleans, the Casa Nostra agreed to broker or arrange the assassination of Martin Luther King for an amount somewhat in excess of $300,000 after they were contacted by reps of Forever White. That's interesting. Forever White is an elite organization of wealthy segregationists in the southeast states. Is Forever White still a fucking organization? Forever White, white supremacist, Confederate fucks, not for money but for influence and access. William Sarter was in Texas in 1971, prepared to do an interview with a nightclub owner linked to Marcello. And when he was found murdered, William Sarter followed up the leads based on the above memo. He uncovered information about a pre-assassination meeting between James Earl Ray and three of Marcello's associates in New Orleans, after which James Earl Ray left town with $2,500 in cash and a promise of $12,000 more for doing one last big job in 2 to 3 months. Frank C. Liberto was a Memphis racketeer and lieutenant of Carlos Marcello. Frank C. Liberto. Lloyd Jowers owned Jim's Grill across the street from the Lorraine Motel in 1993, facing a possible indictment by his last lawyer, William Pepper. Lloyd Jowers went public with Sam Donaldson on ABC's Primetime Live. Lloyd Jowers said Frank Liberto, a Memphis produce dealer, had a courier deliver $100,000 for Lloyd Jowers to hold a package at his restaurant. Jowers sounds kind of like Mary Surratt in terms of being the middleman, boarding house, post office for the criminal Nazi devils. Jowers says Liberto said there was a decoy, James Earl Ray, and that James Jowers wouldn't need to worry about the police that night, April 4th, 1968. Some of those that run forces are the same that burn crosses. It was a cop who left his post at Lincoln's assassination. John Frederick Parker was a cop, a security guard, dressed like a cop. Thane Eugene Caesar, who fired his gun, most likely killed Bobby Kennedy. 4 gunshots from the back, 3 of them hit him, and 1 kill shot. All of them had burn marks, so that means they were point blank range. Bobby Kennedy turns around and grabs the tie off of Thane Eugene Caesar. The only Bobby worthy of that nickname, Bobby Kennedy. There were 2 undercover NYPD cops at the Audubon Auditorium when Malcolm X was killed, and John Ali was FBI. Fred Hampton was killed by FBI and Chicago police. Nazis are cops, fucking fascists, fucking piles of any criminal fuck can just put on a cop's uniform. When people talk about thin blue line, you dumb motherfuckers, how many criminals have you already let in the fucking door? All you got to do is what? Just be a motherfucking blood and crypt MS-13 and talk good about the cops, and then you'll get yourself a job. Giving power to a criminal fuck only multiplies his influence 100-fold. In a taped confession, Lloyd Jowers said that the plotters against MLK were 3 Memphis cops and 2 federal agents. Before the assassination, Jowers was promised some money if he passed a package along. He was given the rifle used to kill MLK, and he stashed it in a back room until another man came to pick it up on the night of the murder. Later on, one of the same Memphis police officers handed Jowers a still smoking gun, which Lloyd Jowers then broke into 2 pieces, wrapped in tablecloth, and hid it in his shop until it was picked up the next day. James McCraw, however, said that Lloyd Jowers gave him the rifle, and for him to get rid of it ASAP, James McCraw did, tossing the rifle off a bridge into the Mississippi River. A cafe owner of Frank Liberto testified at the 1999 civil trial that Liberto flatly told her that he had MLK killed. The friend's son said that Frank Liberto bragged, "I didn't kill the N-word, but I had it done." Liberto was already dead by the time of the 1999 civil trial. James Earl Ray said he knew Raul, and I bet he did. Because how does he have all these connections? And we'll just call his connect Raul until we know who he actually is. James Earl Ray long claimed that there was a Raul in Montreal he had met 3 months after his prison escape. Raul gave James Earl Ray the money to buy the rifle and the white Mustang. James Earl Ray was maybe trying to cover for his brothers, John and Jerry. Because they could have helped him financially. Lloyd Jowers picked out a passport picture of who Raul is as the guy who gave him the rifle to hang on to. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, Martin Luther King proclaimed at the March on Washington in 1963. 2 days after he delivered that speech, the federal government wasn't celebrating his words. On August 30th, the head of the FBI's domestic intelligence sent his colleagues an urgent memo about King. We must mark him now as the most dangerous Negro in the future of this nation. Uh-oh. So that was J. Edgar Hoover. Glenda Grobau knew Raul as a gun runner, testified he flew off the handle once, shouting that Paul is the one who killed, or Paul is the one who killed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Pepper said he'd come to believe that Alpha 184 was a backup operation, a 6-man sniper team. MLK wasn't allowed to leave Memphis past April 4th, 1968. 6 were briefed in the morning, 4:30 at Camp Shelby, shown 2 pictures. One was MLK, the other Andrew Young. They started out at 5 a.m. They came to Memphis. They were briefed there. They took up their positions, but they never got their order, since some wacko civilian, in quotes, shot MLK first. Other names and situations. Carlos Marcello was involved in a joint venture with the 902 MI group, the 902nd MI group. Profits, Weapons, Latin America. Sam Bowers, leader of the White Knights and KKK. Florida Judge Seymour Gelber Hoover ordered others to not pursue Sam Bowers since they had already had a single fingerprint and a single witness they were looking for, James Earl Ray. Okay, J. Edgar Hoover's like, oh, we already got our guy. Interesting. So the motherfucker, oh my God, that just stinks of the FBI. Did the FBI do it? Joseph, they were right there on the scene. They fucking did Fred Hampton. Joseph Miltier George, racist, died in a fire in 1973. Miltier was likely the funds for James Earl Ray. J.B. Stoner was James Earl Ray's third attorney. He said that the MLK assassin should be given a Congressional Medal of Honor. God damn, J.B. Stoner, you racist. And a large annual pension for life. He ran for governor of Georgia, of course, in 1970, and he was beaten by Jimmy Carter. Thank God. God damn. Why would a crazy fuck like that could even think that he could become governor? Jules, Ron, Rico, Kimball, KKK, CIA, Asset James. John Wilkes Booth was like, how come everybody's mad at me? He read the papers later on. Apparently got Ray his fake ID of Eric S. Galt, which was a real Canadian. There's some alibis for James Earl Ray. I don't believe him. He said no, and then quickly explained that he could prove it in a court of law. James Earl Ray said that he was positive that he wasn't in the rooming house across the Lorraine Motel after 5:30 p.m. He said new evidence can reverse the decision. A new trial can be ordered. James Earl Ray said lots of folks have a Pollyanna view of the legal system, tried to escape the country, could get another 5 years. First 7 days walking on the railroad to St. Louis. This is how he escaped. He could get another 5 years tacked on to his... So the first 7 days, he's walking on the railroad, goes to St. Louis, then he goes on to Chicago. He was working at a restaurant, tried to get some identification to establish himself. He bought himself an old car. July 1964, he went to Canada. His old car broke down in Canada. English speaking something. Raul got him some documents. Windsor, Canada to Detroit, Michigan. Ray passed along a package for Raul. Was named something else. John Roger Galt used to rent. The fourth name Ray used. $2,000. Some camera equipment. Wanted him to meet in Mexico. Took stuff from the U.S. into Mexico. Wow, bought the rifle in Alabama. What? He is driving all over America. Raul gave him hotel info in Memphis, gave him an address there to do business. James Earl Ray did a bunch of stuff, fake IDs, buying guns, selling guns. Bus here, taxi there, Canada, Mexico, Alabama, London. Got arrested. Goodness gracious. Great balls of fire. MLK's tie was ripped off by the force of the bullet. So he got shot in the face and his tie just was ripped off. Thane Eugene Caesar. RFK probably got shot right in the back of the head and then fucking grabbed the guy's tie right behind him. And then since there were 2 shooters, then, the people tackled both of them. Thane later on says that he didn't shoot. He pulled, but he was already down on the ground and he never shot. but there were reports that he did shoot and that he shot from the hip, and then that the bullets were going in an upward directory. LBJ was president at the time, 1 year after the 1964 Civil Rights Voting Act was passed. Judge Jackson said the Remington 760 Game Master in the Civil Rights Museum is not the murder weapon. That Remington 760 Game Master, that's not the murder. The death slug bullet they pulled out of King's body, one turn every 10 inches, stainless steel barrel, leatherwood. Judge Jackson seems to know a bunch about bullets and gun testing. MLK got a bullet in the right cheek, or the neck. Jesse Jackson said the neck. The death slug took out some molars, wrecked his tongue, and nicked his carotid artery. 150 feet away, one spotter, one shooter from the firehouse. This is Judge Joe Jackson's theory. So who killed Martin Luther King? He's thinking that it was from the firehouse, and it was a two-man team. And so it wasn't even James Earl Ray. He said he wasn't even in Memphis that day. Justice Department said definitively that Ray wasn't in Memphis on April 4th, 1965. So what the fuck? He wasn't even in Memphis? He wasn't even there in the damn city? Holy fuck. And then what's up with the public? It's like somebody just gets arrested and everybody's like, well, oh, you got arrested, so case closed. He said, not the flop house, not those bushes. Said the view from the flop house had a huge tree branch in the way, and then the tree limb was cut down the day after. Jesse Jackson said Martin Luther King was dead on impact. Jesse Jackson says claiming when he was killed, the FBI in Atlanta jumped on the tables in jubilation, but the news also unleashed fury across the country. Riots broke out in more than 100 cities, leaving 39 people dead, more than 2,600 injured, and 21,000 arrested, with damage estimated at $65 million. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And then he was killed so suddenly, so dramatically, 6 o'clock in the afternoon on a cold April day. 601, April 4th, 1968. Fascism proves that the hatred of the father has defeated brotherhood in America the whole time. Except in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. But you fascist bastards, you can't go to Philadelphia because you don't understand freedom. Fascism proves that the hatred of the father has defeated the love of brotherhood in America. Malcolm X said he fought and died for brotherhood. A lot of people talk about brotherhood. Jesse Jackson, I was coming across the courtyard. We had been practicing some songs that night, some freedom songs, and we were supposed to leave around 5. It was around 6. He said, Jesse, you're an hour late. I said, Doc, you're an hour late. I said, we've been waiting for you. He said, you don't even have a shirt. You don't even have on a shirt and a tie, and we're going to Reverend Kyle's home for dinner. I said, Dr. King, the prerequisite for eating is an appetite, not a tie. He said, you're crazy. We laughed. He looked down over the balcony into the parking lot at Ben Branch, who we had heard play Precious Lord on the saxophone 2 weeks before in Chicago. He said, please do my favorite song tonight. And he raised his head and pow, bullet hit him right in the neck. We heard someone say, get low, get low. So we ran for the steps to go up because we thought that if it had been an automatic weapon, it would get several of us at the same time, but that was not the case. The next thing was Andy Young and Reverend Kyle's and them pointing over toward where the bullet had come from and saying to the police with their guns drawn, the bullet came from that way. Dr. King was lying in the meantime with his foot on the railing. He had been knocked against the wall, and then Mr. Ernest Withers, the photographer, scooped up a couple drops of blood. It was an eerie scene. Reverend Ralph Abernathy said, get back, my friend Martin. Martin, you can't leave me. You can't leave us now. I got to wiping my hands off and went next door to my room, which was next to his room, and called Mrs. King. She was in the bed reading. I said, Mrs. King, Dr. King, I think, has been shot, I think in the shoulder, but you should really come here. I really couldn't say what I saw. It was like too much to say. And she said, I'll come immediately. And no doubt the press called her within the next 10 minutes. And so she found out that he was dead. James Earl Ray supported George Wallace. George Wallace, so did that thing Eugene Caesar. God damn. Basically, George Wallace, what a disgusting. The other guy who shot RFK, Thane Eugene, the security guard. If Sirhan even got one in him, the security guard who shot RFK supported George Wallace too. Thane Eugene Caesar said that the Kennedys were selling the country down the river to the minority and to the commies. James Earl Ray said he got a fake ID from a man named Raoul in Montreal after he escaped prison in Missouri. Missouri, why can't you hold on to your James Earl Rays? And then he did some gun running for Raul between USA and Canada and Mexico and Canada and Alabama. Ray, a white supporter of segregationist George Wallace, was a career criminal who had been convicted of at least 4 separate crimes: robbing a cafe, robbing a taxi, robbing a post office, robbing a grocery store, just kind of robbing, all over. A year before he escaped from the Missouri State Penitentiary while serving a 20-year sentence. Wow. And he was on the lam at the time King was shot. An international manhunt led to his capture in June of 1968 at Heathrow Airport in London, where he was caught carrying 2 fake Canadian passports. James Earl Ray confessed to the crime on March 10, 1969, received a 99-year prison sentence, which increased to a 100-year sentence after he briefly escaped in 1977. That's one more year under your 99-year prison sentence. He confessed. It was interesting. It was like a show trial, right? A show trial. So there was no trial. And that's, in one instance, also RFK, where else do we... In one instance, the FBI sent him a tape that, if the guy just says they did it, then that's... The FBI sent him a tape that allegedly contained audio of him having an affair when it came. A letter threatening Martin Luther King with public exposure if he didn't kill himself, and claiming that the sender had evidence of other affairs. Lloyd Jowers was the man who owned the restaurant underneath the room that James Earl Ray was said to have rented in Memphis. Lloyd Jowers' restaurant was below Ray's rented room in Memphis. For the first 25 years after King's death, Jowers did not claim any involvement in the murder, but after HBO conducted a televised mock trial about the assassination in 1993, in which Ray gave his first public testimony and was found not guilty, Jowers declared that he'd been part of a conspiracy to kill King and that Ray had been set up to take the fall. The other people involved in this conspiracy, Jowers said, included Memphis police officers, a mafia member, and the infamous Raul. So, it's clear, cut and dry, right? FBI and the Chicago police killed Fred Hampton straight up, just went in and killed him. And then the FBI was right there on the scene with Martin Luther King. The U.S. Army is around. The cops are around. The cops are kind of always around. This security guard thing, Eugene Caesar, the John Frederick Parker was a cop. And I'm just thinking the 1960s, that really derailed America. Martin Luther King got murdered, and then you had Malcolm X got murdered, and Medgar Evers. There was like assassination after assassination. Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and Fred Hampton. And, that's some of the greatest fucking people we've ever had in our entire fucking lives, and that's why they got fucking killed. J. Edgar Hoover's this fucking racist pile of shit, so probably could blame him for Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And then when it comes to the Kennedys, would have been fucking Hoover too, because they said that John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy made Hoover go through him first because he's the attorney general, so therefore technically he was his boss. But Hoover had always got access directly to the president, so Hoover could have been resentful of the Kennedys because the Kennedys actually made him obey the person he was supposed. No, you can't go directly to you go to the attorney general first. That's how. So Hoover seems to be, and then who's the other one? Fred Hampton, yeah, FBI. Hoover's all over the fucking place on all those fucking assassinations. And then he says it's the CIA. RFK and JFK was killed by the CIA. So why do we have the FBI? Why do we have the CIA? We don't need them to kill our fucking heroes and our presidents and shit. What the fuck? That is not what we hired those fucking guys out for. Truman got worried about the CIA. He passed like some resolution after they got... I don't know. I think he was getting nervous after his presidency was over about how they were acting a fool later on. So ultimately, what do I think when it comes to Martin Luther King? Wow, there's a lot more information here. So I'm going to have to come back here. But John Ali was an FBI guy. MLK said, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. Well, here's the top of the... Okay, so I got to... All the best information is right here. So I need to... start at the top, and but that's a lot of good information. More greater information is coming up.